Okay. So, my Viet listeners, I am so excited for you to listen to this interview. I'm so excited. I am jumping for joy, to be honest, and blushing a little with just like, I've had this person's name on the list of people I want to talk to for a really long time. He probably is listening when you probably could have called sooner, which lesson for us all. But his talk that he did in 2019 really impacted me in a way that no other talk about fear had. I understood it in a way that I had never been able to understand it before. I could articulate it. I could catch myself. I could actually do it. I could do the things he's going to tell you to do, um, in a way that I never really could before. And I was living in this life where I had all these amazing ideas, but fear was paralyzing me. And if you are feeling stuck, if you are feeling like I have amazing ideas and you get stuck, you hear it in the intro. I hope you hear it in the intro. You might skip forward and that's okay. No, I take no offense, but I say it in the intro. Action is the antidote to fear, and clarity comes from action. But it's really hard to do that when the fear is greater than you. And so I have an amazing coach for you. He's got such great words. You're going to want to save this episode, put it on replay, share it with a friend. Here is Chris Goodman.
Welcome to the Be It Till You See It podcast, where we talk about taking messy action, knowing that perfect is boring. I'm Lesley Logan, Pilates instructor and fitness business coach. I've trained thousands of people around the world, and the number one thing I see stopping people from achieving anything is self-doubt. My friends, action brings clarity, and it's the antidote to fear. Each week, my guests will bring bold, executable, intrinsic, and targeted steps that you can use to put yourself first and be it till you see it. It's a practice, not a perfect. Let's get started.
All right, Be It listeners, I am so excited. I have been talking about Chris to you guys since I think the first podcast, and I'm sure I don't even know that he knows what an impact his talk gave, but I'm going to tell him right now. So he spoke to a group I was in, a mastermind I was in with Chris and Lori Harder, about the fears, like the 5 fears that we all go through. And it made so much sense to me. And it really helped me understand which fears I was operating from. And it changed my world. And I was actually in Australia at the time. Brad was here and in the States, and he was watching, and Brad was like, I don't think I have any fears. And Chris kind of called him out a little bit. And it was so, in the kindest way, as you're going to see. So I'm just really excited because you made a massive impact on our lives and how we talk to people. And now you're here in their ear. So Chris Goodman, thanks for being here.
My pleasure. I feel so warm and cozy with that introduction. And thank you. It's always great to know that, when you set out to help people as a coach, that there are people like you guys who really not just get it, but turn around and share that knowledge or that transformation with somebody else so they can change their life too. That's fantastic.
Well, I think, we tell people a lot of times, some people I can't afford coaching, I can't afford this. And it's even if you are listening to someone speak, if you treat it like you paid for it, you treat it like it's something, and we did pay for that, but you treat it like that, you can learn from people all over the world. So Chris, what are you up to these days? I haven't seen you in 3 years.
Yeah, it's been so long. So much has changed since we last talked. We moved out of California. We live in Louisville, Kentucky now. So if you're anywhere from that area, you know how I just pronounce that. I can tell immediately if somebody's not from here because they'll say Louisville or Louisville. And we all say it like we've got a bunch of bourbon and marbles in our mouth. It's just Louisville. So we moved back here, though, because our family is here. And when Lindsay and I decided to start having children, we didn't want to be 2,000 miles away from our support network kind of thing. So we moved back. We now have a 6-month-old daughter named Eva.
Oh, my God.
She is, as I speak, I think being laid down to take her second nap of the day. So that's definitely the biggest change, changed everything in my life real fast. So that's been fun. And we're celebrating our 3rd wedding anniversary here next month. We just got married the last time we saw each other.
Yeah.
So that's how fast that happens.
Wow.
Yeah. And business is great. I have 3 parts to my business: the podcast, what we call breakthrough coaching, And the mastermind, I do still have some one-on-one clients. I limit those to about 5 or 6 spots. But so between the mastermind, the podcast, and an introductory level one-on-one coaching, it's basically an agency model, right? I have coaches that I've trained, and they work with people who haven't quite risen up to the level of my coaching just yet. So things are busy, things are fantastic, and now we're looking at how do we, the perennial question, how do we help more people?
Yeah. Okay. So I definitely want to get into all the fear stuff that and you're going to such knowledge, but I have a couple questions, because I think a lot of people go from like you were doing mostly one-on-one to now you're limiting how many one-on-ones. And what was that easy to do? Was there fears around that? Like what was the bridge that you had to do? Because that is how do you help more people? Eventually, like we have a ton of people listening who are fitness instructors. They do a lot of one-on-ones. You get limited really quickly. And then it's like, well, how do I create more of me? So how did you do that?
Well, I think it's going to look different for everybody, because, a coaching business or any kind of service-based business that requires your one-on-one attention, at least in the beginning, it's so intimate and it's so easy to let that business get tied right into your identity or right into what you love to do. And that's been my sort of case for the last 5 years. I love one-on-one all day long. I could sit and coach one-on-one, go one to the other, and not get bored with it. So this has been actually an exercise in my own growth to get out of that comfort zone and start to stretch and say like, yeah, you could do this and you could have fun doing it, but will you learn as much as if you tried to scale it this way or that way? So it hasn't been fast. I have I'm sure most of your listeners are like this because they're listening to a growth oriented podcast. I like my growth fast. Right. Yeah. I'm not super patient with my own growth. I can be patient with other people all day long. When it comes to me, though, I want it right now. So this has definitely been an exercise in patience and, scaling for the long haul, looking at that marathon perspective of what's best for my clients, myself, my future self, my family, and how I scale out of one-on-one into things like a mastermind or hiring other coaches and training them. So it's probably more than you needed, but that's
no, but I love that, because it's like, I think it's really easy for some people to look at what you're at right now and go, I can't, like, that's not possible. How did that happen? And I think either they think it happened really fast, you just snapped your fingers and like, voila, it just all worked out, or that's how you started out. And it's not usually true. Most people start out with the one-on-ones, and then there's these growing pains of, that is a long process of trying to figure out how do you coach people to be the best version of themselves, but do things the way that you would want them to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would encourage anybody that's comparing themselves to someone who has experienced rapid growth or rapid scaling to call that person up and ask them about their profitability. Because some of the people, including in the coaching space, that I've seen scale the fastest have a 5% margin, if that. So if that's what you're going for, great, more power to you. However, just don't let that comparison eat you up, because you don't have all the facts there, right?
Thank you for saying that, because I remember even going back to like Chris and Lori, I was in there, my first mastermind with them, and she mentioned like people having like these 6-figure launches, and she's like, I'm not having a 6-figure launch. I'm having like high 5 figures, but it's not happening. And then she found out like they were also spending like 75% of what they made on ads. So they actually weren't making 6 figures. They're making like not that 25,000 isn't like anything to throw away, but like that's not, you don't have all the facts is exactly what you're saying. And I've definitely had to learn that, like, of course I want things to go faster. I got bills to pay. I got people on payroll, but at the same time, like I also need to be profitable so that when ish hits the fan, when things change, when stuff goes out of your control, you can actually sustain for a little bit while you try to figure things out.
Absolutely. And that's the fun part about being a business owner, right? Is you're building that plane on the way down and figuring that out. So comparing yourself to someone else's plane on their way down, not really a great way to spend your time.
I love that you call that fun. That's the fun thing about being a business owner, is just like literally being in the air with an airplane and trying to build it as you.
That we are just crazy enough to sign up for that kind of daily life, right?
I know. Okay. So, all right. So something that I would love for you to share our listeners with, if you can, is is about fear, because I actually think that's the biggest thing holding people back from doing everything, right? Like anything that they can have the best ideas, and like the fear of just, for what we see a lot in our listeners, like fear of rejection or fear of loss.
Mm-hmm.
So like specifically, I coach a lot of Pilates instructors, and like, I'm like, you have to raise your rates. I'm like, okay, I'm going to raise it $2. And I'm like, okay. They're like, but I'm afraid I'm going to lose clients. I'm like, over $2? Over $2, right? So can we talk about these fears and like how are they hindering us, and like what are they keeping us from?
Oh, just everything you want. Happiness, peace, joy, profitability, success, family time, personal time.
Yeah.
You know, I agree. I think it's probably safe to say it's the one thing that holds every human on the planet back in some capacity. So we can kind of revel in that, roll around in that, and enjoy that, because it's like, oh, this is not unique to me. I'm not some, freak of nature that it has to endure this particular type of suffering that only I understand. That's not the case at all. So I would like to start at that foundational level, that every single person is experiencing some sort of fear, whether they know it or not. And it boils down to, I know we had talked about 5 types of fear before, but it really boils down to 2 types of fear. At the end of the day, fear of loss, fear of gain. So your clients sometimes will experience both simultaneously, right? If I gain a few more dollars, I'll lose all my clients. And you see that, you see the person experience this like they are in a spider web. I can't move, because if I move this way, I'm going to bring down the thunder and the spider, right? If I move this way, I'm going to screw it up too. And so they don't move at all. They get stuck in between the fear of gain and the fear of loss, instead of realizing that neither of those fears have any teeth. It's all in our head, right? Because that thing hasn't happened yet. You didn't raise your rates and lose all your clients. You're living in the future, not necessarily reality, right? So when we coach people to start monitoring their thoughts and catching this when it happens, like, oh, this is where I get freaked out. Every time I go to do this, that particular voice in my head, I know I might make people sound like they have multiple personalities. Like what I mean. But we do have those voices in our head, don't we? The one that goes, don't do that, you'll lose all your clients. Don't do this, you'll go bankrupt, right? Don't do this, you'll be alone for the rest of your life. I think that's the actual technique that we need to discuss, is catching that in the moment.
Yeah. And
just witnessing that with innocence, with neutrality, with curiosity. Oh, this is when I get scared. Oh, that voice is trying to scare me into doing something or not doing something. And giving some space to yourself there. Yeah. It feels really wonky at first, like learning how to surf or learning how to ride a skateboard. You're not going to be great at this the first few times. Give yourself some grace. However, the faster you can catch yourself in the moment, the faster you can choose a healthier way out that doesn't involve so much pain and suffering or fear.
Yeah. I do understand when you say like it sounds like we have multiple voices in our head. But we kind of do. Like we have some of the fears are voices of people who've put fears on us from when we were kids. Some of the fears are like from when you were a little kid and something happened. Like there's these different reasons why you have these fears, but I understand that the catching it is the interesting part, because I also think you can get really good at it, and then you can also like almost regress and like pretend like you don't know. Because I caught myself. Backstory. We have been in like supply chain nightmare with our product, with flashcards. So most people know, and I'll just explain to you, we have a deck of flashcards, exercises, and with the person we order with, they have someone who does the boxes. It's a different company. So when we get in line, we're in line with that company, and we're into that company's timeline and that company's supply chain. And then our printer and our fulfillment house, he does the cards and he hosts all the product and ships it out for us, which is amazing. Well, this summer, of course, we hit supply chain issues with the boxes, then with the cards. And then the card guy's like, you know what? I'm going to buy the machine that makes the boxes, so I don't have to put you in line with that person. Great. That's amazing. Sounds awesome. Multi-million-dollar machine. It's like the length of half a football field. Humongous. He's like, but now I got to move my warehouse. And I was like, so do we have to do this right now? Can you just like use your old person still? Like, can we just do that anyways? So we're delayed, right? And we've been trying to get a hold of like, what is the date? Because we want to have this big launch party, want to have this big thing, got to plan things. And so we're told 2 weeks ago, it would be on September 9th. And then, it's Labor Day. And I'm like, hey, did we get confirmation? Obviously not today because Labor Day. So Tuesday after Labor Day, we're like, hey, what's going on? They're like, yeah, we think it's going to happen. I was like, oh, so the moment I hear that, I'm across the house. So I'm in my office. I hear Brad talking and I was like, okay, can we get some confirmation, a little more solidified? By the time I'm now over to his office, I'm like, we're going to disappoint everyone all again. It's just going to be a nightmare. This is going to fall flat. I go down the hall. Now I have a fear because I'm like, oh crap, if we have to bump the launch, it's going to affect this other thing we've got going on. How do we do that? And by the time I got in the shower, I had this full blown, everything is going to go wrong. And then I took a shower. I was like, actually, it's probably going to be fine. What are we worried about here? So it's so funny because the fears can go so quickly. The conversation can happen at light speed. But if you are aware at catching it, you can also catch it that fast. And by the time I got dressed, the whole thing was over with and it's fine. By the time you're hearing this, it's shipped fine. It was all done.
And do you feel the stress gone out of your shoulders and you feel that ease again? Yeah.
Yeah. It is. It's like a...
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because, when clients have never experienced coaching and they get started with us, this is obviously one of the first things we have to take them through because it's inevitable. If you're actually out there experiencing life, especially if you're building a business, you're going to have new fears because you're going to be in different circumstances that tug on these different things in your mind that are sensitive. You care about your clients, you care about your business and your revenue. So yeah, as soon as something disrupts that, it can feel sudden, overwhelming. And clients will be like, what? So am I supposed to just be a robot? I'm not supposed to feel this. I'm supposed to just catch the fear and dissolve it immediately. I'm like, no. We don't want to neuter your humanity, obviously, right? We want you here for the whole thing. Get mad, get sad, get triggered. It's okay. It's what happens after that, right? It's about how long do you want to suffer? How long do you want to be in fear? Because it is a choice. And that's the hard part, is coming to terms with just how much authority and control you really have over your own emotion.
Okay, I really like that. That's very interesting. So thank you for sharing that because it isn't about just never feeling fear because I think that'd be impossible. That would require you to be a robot and be almost. My yoga teacher, he always says you can't have love without hate. You can't have peace without war. You can't be fearless without fear because there's a balance, right? They have to exist there's a coexistence there. So what would you say to someone then who is okay, I understand. I'm going to feel the fear. I'm going to feel these things. And then what are the signs that they need to catch? Is it the body? Is it if they're feeling tense? What are the things they should look for if they're new to discovering when they're in the fear mode?
Yeah, it's a great question because I think one of the easiest ways to catch it is watch your breathing and watch how you speak. So I have a client who battles chronic anxiety. And when I say battle, I mean, it comes on and he has to fight it back. And he knows this. So yesterday we were on a mastermind call and he started explaining what was going on in his world. And he starts pacing. He's got earbuds in and he's pacing on the call. His words are tight and short, and I can hear the almost hyperventilating go. I mean, if I put him on mute, you would be able to tell he was stressed. Mm-hmm. So for anyone listening who's starting to monitor for themselves for those cues, you can tell, listen to how deeply I just breathed in. I'm at ease right now. I'm not, you don't stress me out. I know you might try to scare me, but it's right. And I tend to speak kind of slowly because I'm from the South, yet at the same time, when I get stressed, I speak in bullets. It comes really fast and my chest gets tight and my shoulders pull up and maybe the listener may not see me, but my face gets wrinkled. Simple cues that I can check in with myself and okay, what am I? This is the actionable part, listener. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? 2 simple questions to get right into it. I'm thinking everything's screwed up. Everything's going to go wrong. We're going to go broke. I'm a mess. I'm a terrible business owner. I'm a terrible person. I'm feeling tight. I'm feeling stress. I'm feeling anger. Okay. Now, the next part is just simply accepting that. Okay, that's not a problem. What if that's not a problem? What if it's not a problem? You thought your business is going to go under because you had supply chain issues, right? What if it was actually a good thing that your brain is doing its damnedest to protect you, right?
Yeah.
And to get you to do what the brain does, move or not move, go or fight or flight.
Yeah.
Fair, right? So we can give the brain credit, be like, okay, brain, I see. And all this is happening in a millisecond, by the way.
Yeah.
Right? For someone like me who's been doing this for 10 years, I still go through this. I had a coaching call with one of my 3 coaches that I have this morning, and we were talking about this exact same thing, about what I want to do next in business and what it's dragging out of me. Like fears I didn't know I had, fears that I never thought I would have to figure out because I've never thought about it before. So when you get really good at it, you get lots of reps at it, you catch it in the moment, you go, okay, brain's working to protect me, brain's making body get in line to fight or freeze or bite, as one of my mentors likes to say, right? And when you accept that and go, okay, what if that's not a problem? You take that power back immediately and go, what do I want to do? Do you want to get in the shower with all that stress?
No.
Maybe, right? Maybe you just need to process it for a minute. What do you think?
Yeah. Okay. So that one, I don't know. I hope everyone listening feels very normal and and seen, and also like it is. I'll share this thing. I was having some issues with my stomach recently, and I was telling my holistic doctor, I'm like, I'm just, this is going on. And she's like, okay, well, what's going on in your life? And I was like, well, this is happening. And like this company called, and now they threw this wrench into it. Cause now I'm like, do I want that thing? I don't know if I want that thing. I didn't know that was even an option, but now I'm like, do I want it? And she's like, so your body is reacting normally to all the things. So we can absolutely give you supplements, or we can give you some assistance through this, but really your body's just doing what it's supposed to do. And I think that is something that we tend to forget, that fear that your body pacing or getting short of breath or getting a little stressed out, it's basically your body's responding to what it's supposed to do. And so that just makes it's actually really good that your body and your brain are working together, because that means they'll work together in other ways. And I think what do I want? I think what I hope for, and like what I'm always trying to do, is like catch it before it goes for more than a few minutes or an hour.
Yeah, or a couple of days.
Yeah. Like I'm okay with feeling it, but I want to get better at catching it before I end up on a call with someone on my team, or you know what I mean? Because they don't need me giving them advice or strategies or next steps based off the fear I have. Like if I tell my newsletter person something based because I'm in fear, now she writes a newsletter based off like the thing that I'm feeling. So I personally want to just get better at catching it while it's happening before I engage with other people that could start a domino effect of things that I don't want to happen.
That's right. No, it's such a great point, because people tend to discount how much a decision rooted in fear will create results rooted in fear, right? And you see, I imagine many of your Pilates instructors are going through this right now, that they've been so conservative in their pricing, even though they're bringing tremendous value, that they keep making decisions like backing away from the fear. And so they keep getting people who want to pay bottom dollar prices, right? And so they get clients who are not maybe necessarily respectful of their time or do the exercises they tell them to do, or whatever. Yeah. I've worked with lots of physical therapists, and this seems to be a trend that, when we are in fear and we make a decision like, well, I can't raise rates because then I'll lose clients, they're definitely not doing anything to attract the people who want to pay for instance, premium, a luxury price for a luxury service. Yeah. And so they don't get those people. Those people go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Right? And it's sort of a race to the bottom.
Yeah. No, you definitely call them out.
Well, let me say it this way, that I mean that with love and
compassion,
because there's nothing wrong with you for doing that. Mm-hmm. You simply have not, I use this example all the time. You just haven't learned. You don't know what you don't know. If you live in Los Angeles, correct?
I'm in Las Vegas now. We moved too.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's still Los. It's okay. So I used to live in Manhattan Beach in LA. And when I would go down to the beach with my wife, we'd see people playing, sometimes little kids down in the surf. And I always use this example that, sometimes people would bring a baby out to put their feet in the water for the first time and, experience the ocean for the first time. And the baby would start crying, freaking out, right? Sometimes toddlers freaking out because A, the water's cold. B, they've never seen anything that big and uncontrollable and have no idea what's going on. And so they're in a state of genuine fear. Mm-hmm. Nobody on that beach is looking at that baby going, idiot, look at this stupid over here. Like, it's just water. Look, it's not even deep. Nobody's judging that person because we have such compassion. They just don't know what they don't know. Mm-hmm. Somewhere along the lines, we forget that. And we bring all this judgment into the equation that we should know better as a business owner. We should know better because we got divorced before and now we shouldn't mess up dating now, or whatever your story is, right? Instead of going back to that real compassion that, hey, maybe you just haven't outlearned this fear yet.
So is it possible to outlearn a fear?
I think so. I genuinely believe it is. I'll pick on myself for an example here. I went through a really nasty divorce in 2015. That's putting it lightly. And I started dating my current wife in 2017. And of course, as we got serious, I started to have fears. Well, what if we fall in love and get married and it blows up like the last one did, right? I had to outlearn that fear. I had to outgrow. I think outgrow is probably a better term. Mm-hmm. And the only way I could do that was by facing it head on. Yeah. So when the time came to let Lindsay, my wife, know how serious I was and how committed to this relationship was, I told her, I said, I think this is really going somewhere. And she said, well, that's tough because I'm not sure it is. And I have a lot of fears and I have a lot of doubt right now. And I said, I didn't even think, I just blurted it out. I said, well, that really sucks because I'm in love with you. And talk about running into your fear headlong. I mean, tell somebody that just told you they're not sure about the relationship, that you love them and put your heart out there to get stomped on. And she looked like I threw paint all over her. She was just like, what? And like, I'm growing antlers. What? And this look washed over her face and her eyes welled up with tears. And she said, I'm in love with you too. I'm just terribly afraid right now. Oh my God. I'm so afraid. And so we use this as an example all the time when we do podcasts because we're both afraid. She had bad relationships, failed relationships, 2 relationships that went 4 years each. So it's not like we have somehow strapped on this armor as coaches that allows us to walk through anything with no fear. Not the case. It is that we accept it as sort of a mission to run headlong into it and all the discomfort that comes with it and outgrow it anyway.
Thank you that's a beautiful story, by the way. I love it.
Good.
I love it so much. And I know Brad's going to really enjoy that because I think he can definitely resonate with the fears and in relationships moving forward. I'll tell this quick story. And he asked my dad if he could, propose to me. My dad goes, well, don't be surprised if she says no. That's what my dad's response was. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So when you meet him, he's such a funny person. So anyways, when Brad proposed, we were camping, and really long story short, one friend of his best friend, business partner, had proposed the night before. His other best friend was talking about how he's going to get engaged, and like his future wife was not with us. So he's telling us the whole story and how he's going to plan it. So when I wake up in this tent and like after a nap, he's like, do you want to get married? I just thought he was like engagement happy. Like I didn't actually, I just thought like, oh, everyone's getting married. So you want to get married. And I was like, are you serious? And that, and so like literally what my dad said was like in his head.
It just washes over him, right? Like,
and he's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, yeah. Then he pulled the ring out and I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Could have led with that. I would have known he was serious. I would have known it was for reals.
Yeah, I could have led with that. Yeah. I love it.
But I think I love that you shared that because we can replace fear of a relationship going through a divorce with anything, with like anything. Like if you're afraid of like of some of the growth in your business or trying something new or leaving a job, it's like you kind of do have to figure out a way to face that fear and take that next step, that's the hard part, is like, what's that next step sometimes?
Well, and that's just it, is you must become bigger than that fear. It doesn't necessarily have to go away forever. You just have to get bigger than that fear. I did a reel a couple of weeks ago that kind of hit, and it was basically that so many of us get caught up living in the past, right? And thinking that fear, this thing means that fear is coming back to get me. This relationship means that old fear of loss, of heartbreak is coming back to get me again. And we coach our clients so hard on this to realize and appreciate that the past is dead. And you can leave it there if you choose to. You get to choose. That's what most people are never told, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Chris, you're so freaking awesome. I'm obsessed with you.
Thank you. Thank you. I can do this all day. I love it.
I know. So where can people find you, watch your reels, listen to your podcast? Where are you hanging out?
Well, if I'm not kayaking and on some creek here in Kentucky, you can find me at Goodman Coaching, Goodman, on Instagram. My wife is a big Instagram person, so I have become by proxy an Instagrammer now. If you're serious about coaching, there's two ways to get into my world there. The first one I would invite you into is, and you're listening here, so chances are you'll like this. It's a podcast called Relentless Growth. You can tell I am all about personal growth, business growth, and expanding how much we can achieve and accomplish without sacrificing all of our happiness along the way. So I interview great people. I need to have you guys on, actually. And we talk about so many different topics, but at the end of the day, it always comes back to that intersection of personal growth meets business growth and what happens there. And then if you're serious about coaching, that's a different consideration. I would just start at goodmancoachinginc.com, and you'll see the links right when you hit the page of how to work with us, either one-on-one coaching or group format. And like I said, I really love what I do. So if there's some other type of coaching or some other type of help that you're listening and think, I want to learn more, shoot me a message and I'll happily usher you to one of my many great friends around the world who do this for a living too.
Oh, thank you so much. We'll have all those links below. Okay. Be it action items, bold, executable, intrinsic, or targeted steps people can take to be it till they see it. What do we got from you?
I'd say two things, really simple. Number one, hire some kind of coach. And I imagine many of your previous guests have said, find a mentor, find a coach. I would be silly to not lead with that. I mean, this is, have you ever heard the saying, be a product of your product?
No, but maybe I have, yeah, tell me more.
Well, essentially, if I sell coaching, but I don't believe in coaching enough to hire my own coach, what does that say about my belief in coaching?
Yeah.
So if you're out there feeling like you're ready to grow in some kind of direction, find somebody. And like you said at the beginning of the podcast, even if it's free in the beginning, fully commit to it and see yourself working with that person until you can make it, right? Until you can hire them. And then the second would be what we've talked about is learn to witness your own thoughts. It sounds like such a soft skill, like such a vague, I know you said external or extrinsic actionable item. I think this is the most important thing somebody can do to grow exponentially. And because we could pack on action all day long. If you're not mindful of what's happening inside, you could be miserable the whole time.
Yeah.
Right. How many successful people do you know who are actually secretly miserable? Right. A lot.
Yeah.
And
unfortunately,
at the end of the day, if they could just learn to witness those thoughts, they could learn how to change it. And that's our work. That's where everything starts so that you can get whatever you want.
I love that. We got a nice little intrinsic action step, which I love. There's unfortunately rare versions of those. And I think that they're sometimes the best next step for people. And I agree as a Applies teacher, I have Applies teacher, and if you're listening to this and you're like, but I'm a new teacher and I can't afford it. Yeah. So that's what my platform is for, onlineappliesclasses.com. And you can I could be your teacher online on whatever you want or anyone can, doesn't have to be me. And so I really love all of those. And I think they're not necessarily easy to apply, but we can find ways to apply them now. You don't have to necessarily wait. You can use a person's podcast to be, and just like, if you listen to a podcast, if you listen to Chris's podcast, you'll hear him say things, and you can and write that question down, and you can go back and do it and do the work, because if you can do it without having the accountability to do it, when you do get that accountability, it's going to be like crazy. One of the coaches we work with, we couldn't afford her at the time, but we met her through Chris and Lori, and we took what she said, what she taught us, and we literally ran the plan that she taught. We're like, okay, I wrote the plan down. We ran it, and we made enough money to hire her. We're like, okay, we made the money. We can hire you now.
Right. And that's, I love how you kind of boomerang there and came back to it, because there's no, I think there is this stigma or misconception that there are rules of like how this is supposed to work, when it's such an unfair story to buy into, right? And such an arbitrary, even capricious thing to buy into, because there's nothing preventing you from doing that, and that being a successful plan for you.
Yeah.
Right? You never would have known if you didn't stick your neck out and give it a shot.
Yeah. Chris, thank you for being here. You're
My
amazing.
pleasure. I'm so happy to see you guys again and hear you're doing so well. So let me know if I can do anything else to help.
Wonderful. We will. And also, if we are headed through Louisville on one of our road trips, we're gotta come see you. And you're amazing.
We got enough bourbon for you, at least for a couple of days.
So I love that you have that. When you come to Vegas, don't worry. We've got plenty of also other alcohols.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. There's no shortage. I spent a week in Vegas one night. So yeah.
That's the best thing I've heard. That's probably what most people's are. Thank you so much. Okay, everyone, how are you going to use this in your life? What steps are you going to take? Will you tag Goodman Coaching and the Beit Pod and let us know, and share this with a friend. Share this with many friends. You can screenshot it and share it online. You can also just text it to a friend. And until next time, be it till you see it.
That's all I got for this episode of the Be It Till You See It podcast. One thing that would help both myself and future listeners is for you to rate the show and leave a review. And follow or subscribe for free wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, make sure to introduce yourself over at the Be It Pod on Instagram. I would love to know more about you. Share this episode with whoever you think needs to hear it. Help us and others be it till you see it. Have an awesome day.
Be It Till You See It is a production of As the Crows Fly Media.
It's written, produced, filmed, and recorded by your host, Lesley Logan, and me, Brad Kroll. Our associate producer is Amanda Fraterelli.
Kevin Perez at Disenyo handles all of our audio editing.
Our theme music is by Ali at Apex Production Music, and our branding by designer and artist Gianfranco Cioffi.
Special thanks to our designer Jairo Mandal for creating all of our visuals, which you can't see because this is a podcast, and our digital producer Jay Perdoso for editing all the video each week so you can.
And to Angelina Herrico for transcribing each of our episodes so you can find them on our website. And finally, to Meredith Crowell for keeping us all on point and on time.